I'm Carmine Gallo, and today we're going to talk about taking charge of your career and taking charge of yourself, specifically looking at your mental state and how to elevate your mental game for peak performance. This is the book I've been reading, Take Charge of You. It's written by David Novak, who started Yum Brands. You may not have heard of the brand, but you've heard of the restaurants he founded, including Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, The Habit, 45,000 restaurants around the world. The co-author is Jason Goldsmith, who is a peak performance coach, coaches world-class athletes, especially number one golfers, including people like Justin Rose and Jason Day. So it's going to be a really fascinating conversation. Jason, nice to see you here, and congratulations on the book, read it cover to cover.
Yeah, thanks, Carmine. I really appreciate that. Thanks for having me on the show.
You are a sports psychologist and you coach professional athletes. So you're a coach. Why write a book about self-coaching, showing people how to coach themselves?
Yeah, so, it's really a book about, when we dive into it, and I know we'll talk about this later.
Yeah, let's put it over here. There we go.
There you go. Yeah. My personal purpose in life is to inspire other people to be the best version of themselves. And in order to do that, I have to scale. And the truth is we all could use a coach, and very good coaches are hard to find. And who knows you better, Carmine, than yourself? So if David and I can give you tools that help you end up being the best coach you could be for yourself, then, obviously you'll get the best out of it, and you'll be able to achieve things that maybe you didn't think you were able to achieve.
I think anybody who wants to achieve peak performance in any occupation should take the advice that you offer in your book. You ask one key question, or you suggest that we all ask one key question of ourselves. And that question is this: what is the single biggest thing I can imagine that would grow my joy personally and professionally? Why is that question so critical?
Well, to me, the reason why that question is so important is because it's the thing that motivates you. So, David talks about Warren Buffett having this famous quote that he tap dances to work every day. So if you don't treat your job or your career as a job or a chore, if your mindset is you can't wait to get up every single morning and continue to grow and learn and achieve that mastery in whatever it is, then it's like you live this life and you get paid to do what you would do for free. And to me, I can't think of anything more inspirational or motivational to help somebody figure out what their single biggest thing is.
Your co-author, Dave Novak, realized when he was working for an ad agency that he did not want to work for somebody else. He wanted to call the shots. So for him, running his own thing was the single biggest thing. But please clarify for us, because I think people might get confused, especially if they're recent graduates or aspiring in their career. Someone like yourself, Jason, you took a very circuitous route to what you're doing today, which is performance coaching world-class athletes. You struggled in school, you were dyslexic, we'll talk about that, but you also you joined the Air Force. You worked for a boat charter company, you worked in real estate. So early on in your career, you didn't say to yourself, well, the single biggest thing in my life is to be a performance coach for world-class athletes. That wasn't your single biggest thing. So explain, what does it mean to have a single biggest thing?
Yeah, so for me, it wasn't even on the radar. I didn't even know that it was possible. And so ending up with this career that I have now, being a performance coach, when I was in high school, I had no idea that that's where I would end up. And when I was in the Air Force or in college, or even working at the boat company, it was a fantastic job. And my boss was a great guy. And I was being groomed to continue to work my way up at that boat company. And really what happened was I spent some time to become self-aware. And in that time of becoming self-aware, what I realized was I had more to do in this life. And I had this, unique ability, I think, that came from being dyslexic, to be able to tune in to what was going on with other people. I think it was, maybe a defense mechanism in the beginning, but later on in life, it really allowed me to be aware of what other people were feeling, and how to engage with other people on a different level. And so once I figured that out, then it was easy for me to make that transition to becoming a coach. And even when I first started coaching, I started coaching and teaching putting and green reading. So it wasn't that I made this jump from running a boat company, changing into real estate, and then right into performance coaching. I started off by figuring out what this niche was in helping people become better golfers through learning how to putt, because it's the simplest way to help people lower their handicap.
Right.
But then it turned into, this is all really about mindset, and it's about beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I can help people examine, what are some of these beliefs that you have, where, some of these things that you're carrying around as your view of reality, and maybe those things aren't true, then maybe we can start to make some significant progress in your life, way beyond your sport and your career, but changing how you view yourself.
Jason, let's talk about a mental strategy that selfishly might help my golf performance as a recreational golfer, but also certainly will help leaders and entrepreneurs and aspiring leaders in any field. And that is reframing. You and your co-author write, how we frame a situation in our minds can make an enormous difference. One thing that everyone can learn is how to reframe the voices in our heads, those voices that undermine our beliefs. And I think you wrote it very well. When people ask, what are those voices? Those are the ones that tell us we can't, we shouldn't, or that we're not good enough. The ones that say it's not going to work out, or it's too scary to even try. Jason, when those voices consume our thinking, how do we reframe those voices into something positive that gives me the fuel to perform my best?
Yeah. So, to me, I think that's one of the most important questions and important tools in the book. And, the only thing that we're really in control of is the attitude that we bring to any given experience. So our brain really only does two things on a very basic level. It perceives the environment, and then it makes a prediction about what's going to happen next. And it's doing that because it wants you to know, is this next situation going to be threatening? Is this next situation going to be nurturing? Or is this a neutral situation? And chances are, most of the time, when we have a failure, or what's deemed as a failure, we're not looking at it as an opportunity to grow and learn. We're looking at it as, this is the way it's going to be for the rest of the time. So if I miss this putt, the fear is I'm going to miss the next putt. And then, right, we have this self-fulfilling, ongoing cycle of, every time I approach a putt, now I approach it with fear. And so I'm not able to be the best version of myself. And so the reason why learning reframing is so critical is in that when you have what's known as a failure or um outcome, really what it is it's an opportunity to learn and grow. And so when you switch that mindset and you say, hold on a second, what's reality here? What are the facts? Everybody misses putts. Maybe I'm struggling with downhill left to right putts. So maybe what I need to do is spend some more time figuring out, how do I read that putt better, so that when I go to make a prediction about what the ball is going to do as it travels from where it is to the hole, then I make more downhill left to right putts. But it's all in mindset. And so what you can't do is you can't have that, constantly fixing mindset. It's like a problem identification mindset. When it takes over, then what happens is you're just constantly looking for problems. And when that happens, right, your mind isn't looking for solutions, and you're not open to the possibility that this is just an opportunity to grow. So, I have a conversation later on this morning with a 10-year-old baseball pitcher, and he's this amazing 10-year-old, and he's the number one pitcher and number one hitter on his team, and had a bad outing. And so this call that I'm going to have with him is going to be, okay, we had a bad outing, but really what this is an opportunity for you to grow your skill. And I'm sure he's going to say, well, what do you mean, coach? And I'm going to say, well, how did you deal with it? When you struck out or when that guy hit that home run, how did you deal with that situation? Did you let yourself get emotionally hijacked? Did you, time travel into the future? Did you start to think about the next pitch in a negative way or the next at bat in a negative way? That in itself could be your opportunity to grow.
Jason, right after this interview or soon after this interview, you are going to hop on a plane and go meet with Jason Day, a PGA professional golfer at his next tournament. What is the difference? I've been so eager to ask someone like you this question. What is the difference, the one mental secret between a champion golfer and the rest of us recreational golfers? What do they do differently, Jason?
Yeah, so to me, it's really just time. So if you think about any craft, and you think about the amount of time that an athlete like Jason Day has put into his craft, and the amount of hours, what that's done is it's given him a belief system that he belongs in whatever environment that he's in, competing at that level or competing to get to the next level. And so to me, it comes back to belief again. So, to give you an example, when a person has a belief system that they're an amazing putter and they miss a putt, they don't think negatively about it, right? The ball doesn't go in the hole and they go, oh, wow, I didn't see that. I thought that ball was going to go in the hole, right? Whereas if somebody who, let's say, doesn't necessarily believe they belong at that level misses a putt, they go, oh, see, I told you, I'm not able to make those kind of putts. Those guys on the PGA Tour, they make those putts all the time.
Right.
But again, it's this mindset, this belief system that needs to change in order for them to go from the level they're currently at to the level at, the highest level, where you have those 125 guys that keep their job every year.
What happens to the rest of us, those of us who are not an elite athlete regardless of the sport, but I think golf is a very good example. We can be playing a pretty good round. And I think this applies to any sport. We can be playing a good round, hitting some nice shots, feeling pretty good. The one mistake we make, and then we completely unravel. What happens to the average person? Why does that happen?
Yeah, so I would say the average person, whenever they have an unwanted outcome, the first thing they do is try to fix it. And it's in the trying that they're no longer doing. So, you can play a sport or you can think about playing the sport. And so if you can go back and you can imagine some of your best rounds, you probably started off and, you hit a good shot and then you hit the next shot, but you realize that, you're playing, pretty good golf. And then all of a sudden you have that unwanted outcome. And then the first thought that comes to mind is, oh, I didn't want the ball to go over there. I need to fix it. So now the next shot that you're getting ready to hit had nothing to do with the previous shot, but you're standing over this ball and your thinking mind is now engaged in how to hit this golf ball the correct way. And so you're no longer playing the game.
So as opposed to what? What should my mindset be when I approach my next shot?
You should ask a question, where do I want this ball to go? I need to trust that my training is going to allow me to make a swing, because I just played 8 other holes and I wasn't thinking, so now why be over this ball, trying to hit this shot on this one shot on this ninth hole differently. So what I need to do is I just need to be the same guy I was in the previous 8 holes, right? But that's not what people do. Is it's like you said, it starts to unravel because the more they think, the worse they get. So, just so you understand some brain science behind it, the thinking mind, so your prefrontal cortex can do something around 60 things a second in sequential order, which sounds really fast. Well, your non-thinking mind does somewhere between 11 and 33 million things a second all at once. So if you think nothing else from this conversation, whenever you catch yourself on the golf course and there's a dialogue going on in your head over the ball, do yourself a favor, back out of the shot, recommit to the shot, say, I'm an athlete, I want this ball to go there. And, the only thing that should be on your mind is the target, and swing the club.
Got it. Well, Jason and I here are talking about golf because I love golf and I see golf as a metaphor for pretty much everything. People who know me know that. But it also certainly applies to every aspect of leadership and even entrepreneurship, because not everything you do is going to have your desired outcome. And what happens is people take that, they look at it as a failure, and it doesn't just become a minor hurdle or a setback, but it derails their entire career in many cases. Jason, you have a really interesting technique that I'd like to address. You say change your nots into not yets. And it's a psychological technique where you add the word yet to a sentence. Simple change, simple word, explain it to us.
So this is something that I started to use early on with juniors. And I found that whenever I'd work with an elite junior athlete and we were working on something like a shot that they hadn't hit before, they'd say, oh, I can't hit that shot. And I'd always just say, hold on a second, let's just add, I can't hit that shot yet. Because if you are speaking in a way where you're having a finite mindset, like this is like when I say I can't do something, it's final. But if you say to yourself, I can't do that thing yet, then there's a possibility that in the future you will be able to do that thing. And so for me, just adding yet to the end of anything that you want to accomplish kind of opens the door to possibility. And I think from a performance standpoint, that's critical so that you don't lose your, motivation to keep moving towards that thing. So anytime you catch yourself, being that negative, just say to yourself, hold on a second, I've been traveling a lot. I'd really struggle, to do 10 pull-ups right now. So if I said to myself, I can't do 10 pull-ups, then I'm probably not ever going to try to do 10 pull-ups. But if I say, I can't do 10 pull-ups yet, and I know that if I get back in the gym and I, every day, do 7 today or 8 tomorrow, whatever, soon enough, I'll be able to do 10 pull-ups again. So it's just a way to reframe and open your mind up to possibilities.
I'll tell you exactly where my mind went when you were talking about not yet. And that's where I coach public speaking, communication skills. So many people, especially young people, will look at, like one of the books I wrote was on Steve Jobs or on some TED speakers, the best speakers in the world. And they'll say, well, I'm not there. I'm not as good as Steve Jobs was, or I can't give a presentation. So now I'm going to start reframing the situation, saying, not yet. You're not there yet, but we'll get there with practice and the right tactics. In fact, your co-author, David Novak, admits in the book that he had an early fear of public speaking. It must have been significant because he used the word stage fright. He called it stage fright. It threatened to derail his career success, but he sought out the advice of a communication expert at the company, I believe, where he worked. So I believe this applies to public speaking, but it leads us into the last and the final topic that I'd like to address with you, which I think is really important, not just for athletes, but for leaders and entrepreneurs: avid learning. So that example of David seeking out a communication coach meant that he knew he could learn more. He wasn't there yet, not yet, but he could learn more. Avid learning. How important is being an avid learner to success on the sports field, on the golf course, or in the business world?
Yeah, Karma, I think it's absolutely critical. You have to have a growth mindset. And to me, having a growth mindset is that you realize you don't know everything. And that if you're fortunate enough to have access to people like David Novak, or one of my other mentors is a gentleman named Tom House, then you have access to these people that have done so much in their lives, and they'll point you in the right direction. Like you were just talking about helping people with public speaking. What I think Seinfeld did a comedy bit on, people are more afraid of public speaking than death, right? So to me, I think that you have a huge audience of people that could use this
But
skill
you've
or
got to
learn.
want to learn, Jason.
Right.
That's the difference. Not
Yeah.
everybody is an avid learner.
Mm.
And I think that's the difference between champions in any field and the rest of the people who are average. Those champions are constant learners. And I think, again, golf is a good example. Very few people realize, if they don't watch golf or follow golf, that even people at the highest level, number one golfers in the world, top 10 golfers, have coaches. They're constantly learning. That's what fascinates me. Jason, I'm fascinated. I hate to bring it back to this, but you're traveling out on a plane to go work with Jason Day. Jason Day knows how to play golf. When you were working with Justin Rose, you still are, but he was number one golfer in the world. He knows how to play. Is this an example of avid learning? They're just constantly hungry for instruction?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's necessarily in instruction. I think what they're doing in both of these cases, because two really different personalities, what they're doing is they're wanting to have their ability to get back to playing completely free. And so for a professional athlete, the most important thing is for them to be able to play this game on the golf course without thinking about how to perform an action.
Yeah.
And most of the time what happens is there's so much information out there around technique and how to do something, that it's easy for you to then take that to the golf course. And I'm sure everybody has heard, oh, that athlete's playing golf swing, right? They're not playing golf. And really, that's what I'm working with these athletes on is how do we go from, because the skill acquisition has to happen. So they have to learn those technical things in order for them to get better. But then there comes a point when you have to say, okay, I've done that work, I've done that maintenance. Now, how do I let that mindset go and then get into the creative, playful mindset, which is how the game is actually played?
But they've been there. I guess my point, Jason, is they've been there. They know how to access it, but they are still looking for outside feedback. To me, that simply says that the way to the top is by constantly keeping an open mind and learning and getting feedback from other people. The minute you think you know it all is the minute you stop progressing.
Right. I think, it's discipline and accountability, and having avid learning being a part of your discipline and accountability, I think is critical. So, you had mentioned before that people that are very successful are avid learners. I could not agree more. And part of it goes back to, what we talked about in the beginning of the book, which is becoming self-aware, understanding, okay, these are my strengths. Here are my weaknesses. How do I turn my weaknesses into strengths? And then once I do that, how do I reevaluate and do it again and do it again and do it again and do it again?
Before I let you go, since you mentioned Jason Day, one of my favorite golfers, he does something that I have to address because I've been curious about this. Some people who watch golf more regularly will notice that Jason Day and others, but specifically Jason Day, will close his eyes before he hits a golf shot and visualizes the perfect shot. Does visualization really work?
Absolutely. So, to me, it's part of the process that I work on with all of the professional and non-professional athletes. And the reason why visualization is critical is you're setting your intention to something. So, for us, the cue is, let's say you have 168 yards and that happens to be a drawing 7-iron in this particular win.
Or a 5-iron for me, but okay.
Okay. Perfect. So it's a perfect 5-iron for you, Carmine. And so what you'd do is you'd hold that golf club in your hand and you'd look out at the target and you'd say to yourself, okay, what would a good drawing 5-iron look like that lands right there? And in Jason's case, he would close his eyes. Everybody does it slightly differently, but then that would be the last dialogue you have with yourself. And it turns out that your brain really likes to solve problems. And if you start to use that process where you're not necessarily answering the question with words, but you're answering the question with a visual, it turns out what that visual does is that visual gives your body the sensation to create that action. And you're doing it without words. So you'll remember earlier, words are slow, right? Because that's prefrontal cortex. Images and sensations are fast. So that's visual cortex going back to your cerebellum, motor cortex out into your cerebellum and out into your nervous system. So by visualizing, creating a picture that creates a sensation in your body to perform that action, you're actually being playful and creative. And that's what allows you to get into the zone and play at your highest level.
Getting into the zone. Well, thank you. And please give my best to David Novak, your co-author, for writing Take Charge of You. And thank you for giving us some tips on taking charge of our mental state so we can reach those peak performance opportunities in our lives. Jason,
Absolutely.
thank you so much.
No, Carmine, it was a blast. Thanks so much.